I was the fool in a campus romance, the disposable obstacle designed to swindle one of the school's 4 kings, Liam, out of his heart and his money. The day my awareness sparked was, fittingly, the day of our first meeting after weeks of talking online. A crucial piece of information had been lost in translation. He had mistaken my gender. 3 yards away, with his back to me, Liam slammed his hand on the table. The anger in his voice was palpable as he declared it was a joke, that he wasn't gay, and that this had to end. What was the point of talking to a guy? Staring at the tragic trajectory of my future, I made the swift decision to cut my losses. But when Liam turned and his eyes landed on me, he paused. His gaze locked on me for a few seconds before he silently sank back into his chair. He amended his previous declaration, stating that he wasn't the kind of guy who just quit on people. I was just a background character in the novel, a footnote mentioned only in passing, existing primarily in the memories of the main love interest. The story was a sprawling, choose-your-own-adventure romance set at a prestigious prep school, chronicling the journey of a pure-hearted, resilient scholarship student who captivated the school's 4 wealthiest and most powerful boys, known as the Kings. Through a series of dramatic encounters, all 4 of them fell for him, launching grand campaigns for his affection. The book was unfinished, so his final choice remained a mystery. Liam was one of those kings, and I was the loathsome side character who inflicted a deep psychological wound upon him. The narrative claimed I had pretended to be a woman online to deceive him, manipulating him for his money. When my identity was exposed, and Liam tried to end it, I was supposed to cling to him desperately, threatening self-harm to keep him. I would have relentlessly pursued him, calling myself his boyfriend and committing a series of humiliating acts until Liam and the other kings orchestrated my family's bankruptcy, got me expelled, and I died in a hit-and-run on a desolate road. A cold dread washed over me. I couldn't imagine that deranged person was me. I was attracted to men, yes, but I had never catfished anyone. My connection with Liam started when a friend sent me his contact. I'd been a little tipsy at a party, lamenting my single status, and my troublemaker friend Josh overheard. He immediately started forwarding me profiles from his contacts, giving a running commentary on each. He pointed out one guy who was 6'2" and a gym fanatic, another who was a pretty boy with soulful eyes, and a jock with a deep tan. Then he got to the last one, describing him as ethereally handsome with a phenomenal build, adding a suggestive remark about his rumored assets. I had to ask how he knew that. Josh, knowing me well, leaned in and explained that during the school's annual Gods of Olympus charity photo shoot, someone had snapped a picture of him in gray sweatpants that left little to the imagination. I was stunned that such a thing was allowed, but my feigned moral outrage quickly gave way to curiosity. After Josh confirmed they were all single, gay, and looking, I cautiously added the last one. His impressive physique wasn't the main draw. I was just a sucker for a beautiful face. So I added Liam. We hadn't talked for very long, sharing names but no photos. The connection, however, was instantaneous. We texted constantly, sharing the minutiae of our days until, swept up in the momentum, we decided to make it official. I never said I was a girl. My social media was private, devoid of pictures. I assumed he knew. As for the money, that was a complete fabrication. I came from a wealthy family. I had no need to ask him for anything. Our financial exchanges had been limited to taking turns buying each other coffee through a delivery app. Back in the present, the man across the plaza was radiating shock and rejection. I took a shallow breath, a strange mix of disappointment and relief swirling within me. The memory of my grim fate in the novel solidified my resolve. We had to break up right now. I wasn't about to end up broke and dead. There were plenty of other guys out there. Josh had sent me a whole list. With my mind made up, I walked over, addressing the person next to Liam first. It was Josh. He greeted me with a cheerful hey, and I nodded back before turning to face Liam. He was undeniably stunning, but no face was worth that kind of tragic ending. I looked down, murmuring an apology and explaining that I thought he knew I was a guy. Liam just stared, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He studied my face for a long moment before slowly, deliberately, sitting back down. I took the seat opposite him, opening my mouth to say the words, but he spoke first. He repeated his earlier sentiment that he wasn't the kind of guy who quits. I was taken aback, unsure what he meant. Josh, ever the mediator, jumped in, taking the blame for the mix-up. He claimed he'd gotten his wires crossed, that I was definitely looking for a guy, and that he must have misremembered something Liam had said. Liam shot him an indifferent glance and told him he could go. It was clear Liam held a certain power. Even a fear-nothing character like Josh deferred to him. With a quick nod and a plea for us to talk things out, Josh vanished. The atmosphere grew thick with an awkward silence. I was nervous, my fingers subconsciously twisting the hem of my shirt as I tried to read Liam's expression. He no longer looked angry. He asked what I wanted to drink, noting I hadn't ordered yet. Surprised, I mumbled an "oh" and quickly ordered a random coffee from the app. A few seconds of silence passed. I waited for him to bring up the breakup. Instead, a low voice asked if I was Ethan. Online, he'd called me Eth. I looked at him and nodded. Liam's features were aggressively handsome. Unruly, jet-black hair, sharp eyes, a high-bridged nose, and thin lips over a jawline that could cut glass. He was like a flickering flame in the darkness, dangerous but captivating. Right now, though, his lips were pressed into a tight line. His brow furrowed as if he were wrestling with a complex problem. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. The novel described his family as an empire, a dynasty with roots in global finance and cutting-edge technology. They were old money, powerful beyond measure. His personality was described as volatile and imperious, the undisputed leader of the kings. Anyone who crossed him met a terrible end. I had no desire to provoke such a person. Seeing Liam's hesitant yet irritated expression, I started to worry he was already plotting his revenge against both of us. I chose my words carefully, offering a sincere apology and insisting it was all a misunderstanding. I assured him neither Josh nor I had meant for it to happen, and that I would never tell anyone. I proposed we could just pretend it never happened. As I spoke, I saw Liam's face darken. My heart sank. He repeated my words, his voice low. I nodded vigorously, like a pecking bird, promising to keep it secret. We could just break up, delete each other's contacts. His pupils contracted, his expression growing even more menacing. He demanded to know why I wanted to break up, his voice tight with restrained anger, asking what he had done to dissatisfy me. I instinctively tried to soothe him, insisting he hadn't done anything wrong. The issue, I pointed out, was that he didn't like guys. We weren't compatible. Liam jutted his chin out, retorting that he just hadn't tried it before. I was at a loss, completely baffled by his logic. I threw my hands up in a gesture of surrender and asked him what he wanted to do. He repeated his line about not being a quitter, then abruptly turned his head away, refusing to look at me. He made a final declaration that they would just have to date. My eyes widened in disbelief. This had nothing to do with me. I hadn't tried to cling to him at all. I made one last attempt to salvage the situation, suggesting he didn't have to force himself. Liam turned back, his dark eyes flashing as he insisted he wasn't forcing anything. I kept pushing, reminding him that I'd heard what he said to Josh just minutes before. Liam cut me off without changing his expression, claiming I had misheard. The sheer audacity of his denial left me speechless. It was clear he had no intention of breaking up. I was so frustrated I wanted to stand up and shake some sense into him, but I was too afraid of the potential consequences. What if he got angry and decided to ruin my life? I resigned myself to my fate, miserably sipping my coffee, my mind a storm of anxiety. After we finished our drinks in near silence, I forced a polite smile and said I should be heading back. After a 2-second pause, Liam nodded. As I stood to leave, he rose as well. I assumed he was also leaving and thought nothing of it, but as I walked out of the cafe, he remained by my side. I glanced at him, confused. He simply said he was going the same way. When we reached my dorm, I said goodbye, feeling his intense gaze on my back even after I stepped inside the building. I collapsed onto my bed, exhausted, as if I'd just run a marathon. Nicholas Prep was a school for the elite, and the dorms reflected that. I had a spacious two-person suite, but my roommate had opted to live off campus, leaving me with the entire space to myself. I sighed, contemplating my next move, and decided to sleep on it. I woke up groggily to find it was early evening. I had slept for nearly 3 hours. A single unread text message waited on my phone, sent 2 hours ago from Liam. It read that I had been very cold today. I shot upright, gnawing on my thumbnail as I frantically typed a reply. I told him it was only because he was so handsome that I got nervous and shy. I even sent a blushing emoji and a head-patting gif. He replied within seconds. He acknowledged my excuse with a simple "Oh, all right then." I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling I had dodged a bullet for now. My tired brain began to churn. The possibility that he was genuinely attracted to me was almost zero. It had to be his pride. He'd agreed to this online relationship and didn't want to look like he couldn't follow through. And since I was the one who tried to break up first, his ego was probably bruised. But I couldn't let this continue. Staying with him would lead me right back to the original plot's tragic ending. Then an idea sparked. The novel said he was homophobic. Perfect. All I had to do was make him so uncomfortable that he would be desperate to break up with me. I would be excessively clingy. I would do all the things a straight guy would find repulsive in a relationship with another man. Holding hands, hugging, constant physical affection. I would be on him all the time, constantly checking in. Given Liam's fiercely independent nature, he wouldn't last 3 days. I felt like a genius. My plan went into action immediately. That night, before bed, I texted him. I asked if he was asleep yet, calling him darling. A minute later, he replied that he wasn't. I immediately followed up, asking what he was doing. He said he was at Ascend with friends. I remember Josh mentioning it was a high-end lounge. I feigned a fit of jealousy, firing off a series of accusatory questions about why he went there, why he didn't tell me, and whether he was trying to hide from me, complete with a crying emoji. Surely this would push him over the edge. Instead, he initiated a video call. I scrambled out of bed, smoothed my hair, and accepted. Liam's face filled the screen, his dark hair striking against the club's ambient lighting. He spoke first, his clear voice carrying a magnetic quality. He explained he was just with a friend and had only had a couple of drinks. He added that he hadn't invited me because I had mentioned before that I didn't like places like that. I was momentarily stunned into silence. All I could manage was an "oh." The guy was impressively tolerant. I faked a yawn, saying I was tired and that he should be safe on his way home. The sharp lines of his face seemed to soften. He wished me good night, and I returned the sentiment. Over the next few days, I escalated my campaign of affection. My texts were relentless streams of "I miss you," and compliments about how he seemed to get more handsome every day. I asked if we could hug next time we met, and barraged him with messages if he didn't reply within 2 minutes. When this verbal assault failed to produce a reaction, I took it to the next level. I started saying these things to his face. Liam remained unfazed, though I did notice a certain unnaturalness in his expression, a flicker in his gaze. I decided it was time to introduce physical contact. One day, on our way to the dining hall, I accidentally brushed my shoulder against his, then stayed pressed close against his side. Liam's stride faltered for a fraction of a second before he continued walking as if nothing had happened. I stole a glance at him and commented that we hadn't even held hands yet. He stopped. Just as I expected him to recoil in disgust, I felt my hand enveloped by his. He had taken my hand. I was stunned, feeling the strange warmth spread through my fingers. He asked if this was wrong, noticing my frozen state. He frowned, as if contemplating a better technique. A moment later, his long, elegant fingers slid between mine, lacing them together in a firm grip. He seemed satisfied with this, remarking that it felt more appropriate. As we walked, I was a half step behind him, and from my vantage point, I could have sworn I saw the tips of his ears turn an unusual shade of pink. This man's tolerance was truly something else. During the meal, I sat right beside him as usual, staring at the sharp profile of his face. Another wicked idea formed. I tugged on his sleeve to get his attention, telling him he should try a piece of my steak because it was really good. Before he could answer, as he turned towards me, I speared a piece of beef with my fork and held it out to him. A fork that had been in my mouth, covered in my saliva. A smug, evil laugh echoed in my head. There was no way the refined, wealthy young master would eat this. But to my utter astonishment, Liam opened his mouth and calmly ate the steak right off my fork. He even nodded in agreement, saying it was good. There wasn't a trace of reluctance or disgust on his face. My fake smile nearly cracked. So much for being homophobic. I turned away, distractedly spearing another piece of steak for myself. I swallowed it too quickly and began to choke. Liam's expression changed instantly. He gently patted my back with one hand while holding his water glass to my lips with the other. I tried to take the glass, but he held it firm, forcing me to drink from his hand until I could breathe again. He asked if I was okay, his concern seeming genuine. I shook my head, momentarily dazed. Then, Liam calmly picked up a napkin and wiped my mouth. He told me to eat slower. I suddenly felt my cheeks flush and quickly looked down. Liam was a campus celebrity. It didn't take long for me to feel the weight of numerous stares on us. I could faintly hear whispers. Who was that with Liam? People had apparently seen them together a lot lately. Was that his boyfriend? Impossible. Everyone knew Liam wasn't interested in anyone. A jolt went through me. The fewer people who knew about us, the better. If we broke up and Liam heard gossip, he might decide to retaliate. I discreetly tried to put some distance between us, but within seconds, Liam had shifted closer again, erasing the gap. After that day, it was as if a switch had been flipped in Liam. Whenever we walked together, he insisted on holding my hand, fingers tightly interlaced. He showed no signs of wanting to break up. He seemed to have become completely immune to my overly affectionate words and actions. The guy was a fortress. That evening, he walked me back to my dorm as usual. He didn't live on campus, preferring a large, private penthouse near the school, to and from which he drove a rotating collection of limited-ion supercars. I'd gotten used to the chauffeured rides. I waved goodbye, holding the model kit I just bought at the mall. Just as I turned to leave, he stepped forward and grabbed my arm. His voice was a low murmur in the night air as he reminded me that we still hadn't hugged. He was learning my own tricks and using them against me. His gaze was so intense it felt like a physical touch, and I stammered, agreeing that we should. Before I could finish the sentence, he pulled me into his arms. I was enveloped in a crisp, cool scent, more potent than ever at this proximity. Liam was considerably taller than me, and my face was pressed against his collarbone. My body slowly relaxed into his embrace. One of his hands rested on my back, the other around my waist. I mirrored the gesture, wrapping my arms around him. Under the night sky, we stood in silence. His chin rested on top of my head, gently nuzzling me as if I were something precious. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, it felt like we were a genuinely devoted couple. After what felt like a long time, he finally let me go. His dark eyes shimmered. He wished me good night, and I echoed the sentiment, my voice a little dazed. Back in my room, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. That infuriatingly straight man was messing with my head. Didn't he know how ridiculously attractive he was? Was he not afraid I'd end up clinging to him for real, just like in the story? My phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. He felt my way of addressing him was a little distant. I rolled over in my bed, sending a hug emoji first, my standard move to placate him. Then I typed out a list of alternatives. Liam, darling, honey, "Babe." I asked which one he preferred. His reply was swift. "The last one." "Babe." I gritted my teeth, feeling like he was taking advantage, but I recorded a voice message anyway, pitching my voice into a cloyingly sweet tone that made my own skin crawl. I waited a few minutes, but there was no reply. Had I finally scared him off? I listened to my own message again. It was a bit much, but not that bad. I sent another. "Babe, are you asleep? Babe, why aren't you answering me?" This time, he responded almost instantly with a text that read, "On loop." It was followed by a swooning emoji. Before I could process that, a voice message from him came through. His voice, deep and magnetic, was laced with an indescribable tenderness. "Ethan. So good." It was all getting so complicated. To be honest, dating Liam was nice. I got to see his handsome face every day. He treated me well, and he was always responsive. He was, infuriatingly, the perfect boyfriend, and my novice heart was struggling to resist. I decided to stop fighting it. For now, this was a consensual relationship, nothing like the one-sided obsession described in the book. One day, I went to find him in the music room. He sometimes practiced drums there. But today, someone else was in the room, playing the piano. It was Caleb, another one of the kings, the gentle, approachable one. Liam had introduced me to his friends before, but we'd barely interacted. Caleb greeted me, and I replied before turning my attention to Liam. The moment I called out to him, he stopped drumming and strode towards me. He took my hand naturally, saying he was glad I came and that he wanted to go to the lounge. As we were leaving, Caleb called out teasingly that it was hard to get a moment of Liam's time now that he had a boyfriend. Liam paused, glancing back with an impatient "What is it?" written all over his face. Caleb just smiled, saying he wanted to share that an interesting new scholarship student had just transferred to the school. Liam frowned, completely uninterested, and asked why he should care when Caleb started meddling in such trivial matters. Caleb just shrugged, saying he was bored. With that, Liam led me out of the room. My heart sank. A new, interesting transfer student. It had to be Noah. A sense of unease settled over me as we entered Liam's private lounge. Liam's voice broke through my thoughts. He told me he had a surprise for me. I looked up, curious. He asked me to close my eyes. Despite my internal turmoil, a flicker of anticipation ignited. I closed my eyes. A moment later, he told me I could open them. He was holding a small gift box. Inside lay a beautiful, expensive-looking watch. I looked at him, surprised. He explained it was a gift, a 1-month anniversary present. He seemed almost embarrassed, the tips of his ears turning red. I was touched and a little amused that he was keeping such close track of the date. I took the watch, thanking him and telling him how much I loved it. His eyes lit up. I hadn't gotten him anything. I felt terrible. An idea struck me. I led him to the sofa and told him to sit down and close his eyes, promising I had a surprise for him too. He obeyed without question. I looked at the man sitting before me, his eyes closed, and leaned in. I cupped his face with my hands and planted a soft, quick kiss on his right cheek. I didn't dare kiss him on the lips, afraid his reflexes would send me flying. "Okay," I said. Liam opened his eyes, looking at me with a dazed expression. I gave him a wink. Surprise. A kiss of love. It was our first, even if it was just on the cheek. His dumbfounded expression was such a contrast to his usual cool demeanor that it was incredibly endearing. I couldn't resist reaching out and lightly scratching his chin. I asked him why he was so quiet, teasing if he didn't like it. Liam's breathing hitched. He suddenly pulled me towards him, and I tumbled onto his lap. His voice was husky as he said he liked it very much. A hand cradled the back of my neck, and he crashed his lips against mine. It was obvious he had no experience. The kiss was clumsy and forceful, a desperate grinding of lips. Then, not content with that, he pushed his way into my mouth, his tongue sweeping through, tangling with mine in a frantic, possessive dance. Our breaths became ragged. After a long time, he finally pulled back. I rested my chin on his shoulder, limp and breathless. Liam's arm tightened around my waist, and he turned to place a gentle peck on my earlobe. His voice was thick with satisfaction as he murmured that he liked this even more. Noah had arrived. The protagonist who was supposed to make the kings fall all over themselves was now a student at our school. I was a mess of anxiety and irritation. Logically, if Liam was drawn to him now and broke up with me, I would be free. I wouldn't have crossed him, and I'd be safe from the story's tragic plot. It was a win-win, but the thought of Liam with someone else left a sour taste in my mouth. I didn't want to give up my perfect boyfriend. To my relief, our honeymoon phase continued. Liam was constantly with me, so glued to my side he didn't seem to notice anyone else, let alone Noah. It appeared Caleb had made some initial contact with him, but that was it. Remembering Liam's anniversary gift, I decided to make him something. He was so wealthy that expensive gifts probably meant little to him. I commissioned a custom set of headphones for him and bought materials to build a miniature replica of his drum kit. I became so absorbed in the project that I often forgot to reply to his texts. When we next met, he had a wounded look in his eyes, his gaze drooping pathetically at the corners. He wouldn't say what was wrong, only asking if I'd been busy lately. I gave a vague answer about having a lot of coursework. The look of dejection in his eyes deepened, caved. There was only one solution for this. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling his head down, and nuzzled my cheek against his. I whispered provocatively, asking if he wanted to try and kiss me until I passed out. Liam's hand clamped onto the back of my neck, and he kissed me without a moment's hesitation. It was even more intense than the first time, a searing, desperate kiss that left me dizzy. In the haze of passion, I felt the unmistakable evidence of his arousal, confirming Josh's long-ago claim. My hand slid from his chest, inching towards the waistband of his pants, but he caught my wrist, stopping me. He pulled back slightly, his eyes red-rimmed, his voice smoky and raw. He apologized, thinking he had scared me. It was like a bucket of cold water. I lowered my head, mortified. I had gotten carried away. He was a straight guy, after all. He couldn't possibly be comfortable with me being so forward. We never spoke of that incident again. Our interactions returned to their previous rhythm, though our kisses were now more restrained. My drum kit model was almost finished, just in time for our 2-month anniversary. I poured all my free time into it, even turning down 2 of Liam's invitations to hang out. Soon, it was the school's annual cultural festival. I managed to convince Liam to sign up for the Battle of the Bands. I sat in the audience, waving 2 glow sticks I'd bought just for him while Josh filmed. Liam looked even more incredible on stage. His dark hair was styled to look wild, and a silver earring glinted under the stage lights. He twirled his drumsticks in a dazzling display before launching into a powerful, dynamic rhythm. He was the epitome of rebellious cool. As his set neared its end, a roguish smile played on his lips. His eyes found me in the crowd, and he puckered his lips, blowing me a kiss. My breath caught in my throat. He was so damn shameless. After a final bow that elicited a wave of screams, I decided I shouldn't let him be so conspicuous in the future. I didn't need the extra competition. Once his performance was over, I lost interest in the rest of the show. I slipped out a back door with Josh. Liam texted to say he was stuck backstage for a bit but would find me soon. I told him where I was and sat down on the steps. Josh sat beside me, nudging my shoulder. He commented on how things were still going strong between Liam and me. I just hummed in agreement. Josh marveled at how Liam had finally opened up, cring my infamous charm. I playfully shoved him away. He slung an arm around me, lowering his voice to ask about Liam's performance. My face froze. I told him to change the subject. Seeing my reaction, he misinterpreted, asking if Liam was all talk and no action. I sighed in frustration, explaining we hadn't tried, so I didn't know. Josh was shocked, saying that with how close we were, He assumed we'd already gone all the way. My mind flashed back to the moment Liam had grabbed my wrist, and a fresh wave of gloom washed over me. Josh's expression turned serious. He confessed he'd been worried but hadn't said anything because we seemed happy. He reminded me that Liam had been so adamant about not liking guys, yet he was now with me. He warned me not to get in too deep if Liam was just playing around. He said I should get out the moment things felt wrong, and that the other guys he'd recommended were still single if I wanted their contacts. Just then, a cold voice cut through the air from behind us, asking what we were looking for. I turned to see Liam standing there, his face a mask of stone. I had no idea how long he'd been there or how much he'd heard. I nearly fell down the steps in fright. Josh was frozen, sputtering nonsense. Liam looked at me, extending a hand. He told me it was time to go. His voice was calm, but I felt a chill run down my spine. I took his hand and let him pull me to my feet. The car ride was silent. Liam didn't say a word, just gunned the engine. I asked nervously where we were going. He replied flatly that we were going to his place. His penthouse wasn't far. Soon we were in his underground garage. I followed him into the apartment, a sense of doom hanging over me. He hadn't said anything, but he was radiating a dangerous energy. He must have heard. As I closed the front door, he spun around and pinned me against it. Before I could react, he gripped my chin and kissed me. A brutal, urgent kiss that felt like he was trying to devour me. It was fierce and punishing. I quickly ran out of breath, pushing against his chest, but he simply captured my hands and pinned them against the door, continuing his assault. Only when I started making muffled protests did he finally stop, sinking his teeth into the side of my neck. I hissed in pain, knowing it would leave a mark. As I flinched, he licked the spot, sending a shiver through my entire body. His voice was a low growl, thick with suppressed rage. He asked if my recent busyness, the rejected dates and late replies, was because I was talking to other people. The hand on my waist tightened. I knew this was a dangerous moment. I quickly shook my head, denying everything. I swore I was only talking to him. He stared down at me, his eyes dark, and asked how many people Josh had set me up with, if I was still thinking about them. So he had heard. I insisted Josh was just joking, that there was no one else. He studied me for a long moment before leaning in to kiss me again, this time with a gentle tenderness. He forbade me from thinking about anyone else, telling me I had him now. He was jealous. I was both amused and exasperated. I wrapped my arms around his waist, pressing myself against him. I promised I was only thinking of him. Liam nuzzled my neck, his voice a hurt whisper as he mumbled that he wasn't all talk and no action. He'd heard that part too. I scrambled for the right words to soothe him, blurting out that he shouldn't listen to Josh, that looks weren't what mattered in that department, that compatibility was the most important thing. He immediately asked if we should try. I froze. He held me tighter, his voice a low promise in my ear. He was sure we would be compatible. The world spun as he swept me into his arms and carried me towards the bedroom. I stammered, asking if he was sure, that we didn't have to rush. My body sank into the soft mattress as he hovered over me. He explained in a low voice that he just wanted it to be a good experience for me, that he didn't want to leave a bad impression, so he had been studying. He said he had learned enough now. He promised he wouldn't hurt me. He asked if we could try. Looking into his eyes, I was completely mesmerized. I heard myself nod. Liam hadn't been lying. The room was well stocked with everything we could possibly need. He was patient and knowledgeable, guiding us through everything with a surprising expertise. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating our tangled bodies. My fingers dug into the smooth, powerful muscles of his back as waves of pleasure washed over us. In the darkness, everything fell silent except for the frantic drumming of our hearts. I was too exhausted to move, my eyes fluttering shut almost immediately. Vaguely, I felt him carry me to the bathroom. All my previous worries had been for nothing. Liam was more than capable. After that night, it was as if a dam had broken. The man who had once stopped me was now insatiable. I started to feel my knees go weak whenever he looked at me a certain way. I had to call a halt as he started leaving marks on my collarbone again, reminding him I had a gift for him. He paused, his eyes still hazy with passion. I insisted, pushing him back a little so he was sitting up. It was my gift for our 2-month anniversary, and a belated one for the first month. I presented him with the custom headphones and the drum kit model. He unwrapped them with a delicate care, as if the packaging itself were precious. His eyes lit up with every tear of the paper. When the miniature drum kit, a perfect replica of his own, was fully revealed, a wide, unrestrained smile broke across his face. He was speechless. I puffed out my chest, proudly telling him I'd made it myself. He called me amazing, a genius, his multi-talented boyfriend. He pulled me in for another series of kisses and nuzzles, thanking me profusely. He asked softly if this was what I had been so busy with. I pouted, reminding him that he had suspected me of talking to other people when I was secretly making him a gift. He apologized immediately, pulling me onto his lap and whispering in my ear that to make it up to me, he would be sure to serve me even better later. Our blissful, shameless days continued. I had completely forgotten about the original plot. Liam had no interest in Noah. He was just another student. And thanks to Liam's very public displays of affection, most of the school now knew we were together. I thought I would never have to interact with the protagonist again. But one afternoon, I was jolted from a nap by a loud bang. Someone had thrown open the door to Liam's private lounge with enough force for it to slam against the wall. I blinked away the sleep and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was Noah. I had no idea what he was doing here. Liam, however, reacted instantly. His eyes turned sharp, and he commanded him to get out. Noah flinched but held his ground, defiantly asking why. He argued it was a school lounge, and if we could be here, so could he. Liam sneered, asking if he couldn't read. It was his private lounge. Noah's eyes flickered to the nameplate on the door, but he didn't back down. He questioned the school's rules, asking who Liam thought he was to have such special privileges. Liam's response was blunt. He told Noah that if he donated a few $100 million to the school, he could have one too. Noah was speechless. Liam delivered the final blow, giving him a choice. Get out now or be expelled. Noah's face flushed with humiliation. He clenched his fists, but ultimately he turned and left. I watched, dumbfounded, as if I just witnessed a bizarre piece of performance art. Liam just stroked my hair and told me to go back to sleep. The school announced a wilderness retreat, organized primarily by the student council, the Kings. Participation was limited. To my surprise and yet complete lack of surprise, Noah was on the list. I wasn't worried anymore. Liam was so obsessed with me lately that I had no doubt about his loyalty. The trip took us to a beautiful, scenic mountain range. After a night at the base, we began our hike. It was a refreshing change from the city. I was drinking from Liam's water bottle when I noticed him taking another picture of me. I laughed, asking why he kept taking photos of me instead of the scenery. He looked at me, his eyes soft, and said I was more beautiful. I suggested we get someone to take a picture of us together. As I scanned the area, I saw Noah watching us from a distance. I quickly looked away. Liam called someone over to take our photo. I grinned and jumped up to make bunny ears behind his head just as the picture was snapped. That night, we were to sleep in 2-person tents. Someone suggested we draw lots by gender to pair up. Everyone agreed, but Liam and I had no intention of participating. As the slips of paper were passed around, Noah spoke up, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. He asked why we weren't drawing, arguing that it was unfair for us to get special treatment. I calmly explained that we had already planned to be together. Noah persisted, saying that if that was the case, everyone should be allowed to choose their own partners. Liam's brow furrowed, and he coldly told him to suck it up, asking if he had a problem. Noah accused us of ignoring the rules and lacking team spirit. Liam scoffed, declaring that he was the rules. He pointed out that no one else had a problem, and accused Noah of being jealous because he couldn't stand to see others happy. Noah's face turned beet red. Someone next to him tried to placate him, explaining that everyone knew we were a couple. Noah stubbornly looked to Caleb for support, but Caleb just ignored him. The small incident was quickly forgotten. That night, Liam and I lay in our tent, looking at the stars. It was perfect. When it got late, he zipped up the tent and his hands began to wander. My internal alarm bells went off. I gently stopped him, reminding him we had a long hike the next day and I needed my energy. A flicker of disappointment crossed his face, but he listened, pulling me close and kissing my forehead. He then whispered huskily that he was very uncomfortable and pleaded for me to help him. The man was simply too good at being persuasive. Life went on. Liam and I were happy. The plot of the book had gone completely off the rails. The kings were not fawning over Noah. Even Caleb, who had initially shown some interest, had lost contact with him. Liam was so devoted to me that Noah was nothing more than a stranger to him. One day, I received a notice from the school. My dorm was getting a new resident. I groaned inwardly. I was so used to living alone. The thought of sharing my space, especially with a boyfriend in the picture, was uncomfortable. I decided I would just move out. With Liam's help, it shouldn't be too difficult. As I was thinking this, I got a text from him. He had another surprise for me. I was texting him back, asking what it was, as I walked towards my door. Just then, I heard a key in the lock. The door swung open, and a very familiar figure stood there with his arms outstretched, a smug look on his face. He announced with a flourish that I should come and greet my new roommate. I laughed, calling him a lunatic, and launched myself into his waiting arms.